Welcome back to Coach Factory. This is the channel where we talk about your coaching business. My name is Kathy. Today I want to talk about your story. All right, we all have a story. I don't care who you are, whether you are the greatest coach in the world or if you're just getting started, you have gone through it. We all have pain somewhere in our lives. We all have trauma, whether it was from mom or dad or teachers or an ex-boyfriend, and you're ready to write Taylor Swift songs about all of the trauma you've been through. We all have trauma somewhere. We all have our pain. When we resolve that pain, we become sort of like this wounded healer, right? We become the person who leads other people out of dark places. I saw it in my husband's coaching business. He didn't have the easiest life. It was this harder life that turned him to learning neuro-linguistic programming and gave him the tools to heal client number one. That was himself. And then he took those tools and started helping other people find healing in their life. Our wounds are our power, are our strength. Our story is our strength. And it is up to us to share that story, the pain that we've gone through, and how we triumph, how we overcome, how we become the hero in our own journey. Right? It's all about the hero's journey. Everyone resonates with the hero's journey. The underdog who is behind and somehow overcomes, somehow finds resolution, finds the solution to problems. That is your story. Let's talk a little bit about how you share that story. Now, in the early days of the internet, there were all of these really creative people who were creating their own personal websites, and they were doing these online journals, and everybody was sharing their stories. And they were sharing their stories often from the perspective of being in the midst of it. They almost used their personal sites as a place where they did online therapy. And hardly anybody was online when I first got online in the mid-1990s. But these were incredibly creative people who were doing amazing things with HTML, and they were changing the designs of their websites all the time. And I got sucked in to a lot of people's stories. And then blogging happened, and everybody was changing the themes and the colors and the designs of their blogs. And I was learning so much about the technology behind all of this. I was just enthralled. But I was also enthralled by people's stories and their stories of pain when they were soaking in it, as well as when they were learning from it. Now, we have all matured. There's plenty of us, plenty of people who share their stories from a very vulnerable place online. Should you be doing that as a coach when you are going through it, when you need to find some resolution yourself? Is that where you share the story? I would argue no, that when you are being too vulnerable and you are sharing the pain that you're going through in the moment that you are in it, this is the time, you can share that story, but in a more private place with your core people, not your core audience, not your core clients, but your friends, family, those types of people. That's when you can share those intimate moments. Like, I use Facebook for that. When my husband had a stroke, I went on Facebook to basically just say, hey, I'm not going to be here for a while because this just happened, and oh my gosh. But I got so much support from people as I was soaking in it. It became my place to go get support, and people I hadn't talked to in 20, 30 years were there for me. My core people were there for me, and they lived through it with me and supported me through that journey. But I often would come to them with the experience of triumph, of getting through it. But I also shared those painful things when insurance wasn't working out. But that was like my core people. I wasn't selling anything to them. It's okay to be vulnerable in those safe places. But when you're talking to your coaching prospects and your coaching network, the people that you want to coach, that is not the time to be vulnerable. It is not the time to share the pain as it is fresh. It is time to share the pain with 2020's hindsight, with I've gotten through this, and this is how I got through it. You share it from the perspective of solved problem, not solving problem, not where the emotions and the thoughts are too raw. Because there you're being a little too vulnerable, and some of the people that are watching you almost, I think, myself included, when I was doing it, from a place of being a little bit of a train wreck I'm going to be honest, when I was in the midst of it and he was in the hospital and he was transferred to a brain injury unit so he could get more intensive therapy and immediately got COVID. And it was just like, I felt like we were getting knocked down every time. That was not the time to share the experience with my coaching clients. I was a little bit of a train wreck, but I needed support and I needed to vent a little bit. And in a closed environment, more like Facebook, this is a place where you can do that, where you're just sharing with a core group of friends and things are more private and you're not sharing it with clients, right? You're sharing the rawness of what you're going through. Get your support where you need to get your support, but sometimes these things just don't belong online. Private journals might be a place where you might want to work through these types of things, or with core people who are in your network. But when it's time to sell your coaching business and where you're selling your story as a roadmap that you've walked down and that you've gotten to resolution, it's time to be inspirational from it. It's not time to share the deep, intimate nature of what you're going through in the moment that you're going through it. You need to be sharing that story from a place of resolution, of overcoming the hero's journey at the end. I think a lot about Tony Robbins, who is a behemoth in the coaching industry. He was probably one of the first real NLP coaches. And Tony shares his story. I've been to Tony's events and he shares his story. He does so in such a uniquely crafted way, but he shares his story very vulnerably, but he shares it from a place of 2020 hindsight of what he's been through. Now, there was one interesting story that he shared about his very first coaching client and how rebellious and not open to help his very first client was. And his demeanor changed, and people who were in the chat on Zoom were noting that his demeanor changed somehow. And then he's asking questions of the audience. What do you think was going on with this first client of mine? Basically to hammer the story home so everybody would get it. And then he hits us with the bomb that his first client was himself, that he needed coaching as much as all of us did. We all need coaching. We all need help. We all need that leg up. But how you craft your story is incredibly important. Sharing raw details as it's happening is not going to serve you. It might serve you in terms of getting support from your immediate network, but it is not going to serve you when it comes to selling what you do for your clients. When you are in the midst of pain, it is the time to go inward, to introspect. If you are a writer like I am, it is the time to journal and get all of those emotions out. Sometimes I'll share those types of things on Facebook, but always in a very refined way. Even if I'm sharing something in the middle of soaking in it, I want to share it in a way that provides optimism and resilience and a perspective that no matter what's going on in your life, you can look at it different. Now, one example, this morning, I'm recording this on September 8th. So last night, my husband's favorite team in the NFL is the Buffalo Bills. He grew up in upstate New York. His whole family supports the Buffalo Bills, and he's into football now. So I put the Bills game on, and it looked like they were just not going to win. And so I was going to turn it off, actually, because I'm like, he doesn't need to see this this massacre. They were like down like 40-25 or something like that. And I thought, there's no way Baltimore is going to win this game. But I left it on, and then there was a fumble, and I'm like, maybe there's a chance. And instead of like cleaning up the kitchen, I actually sat down with my husband and watched it with him, saw how happy he was. And it became a lesson. Any kind of underdog story becomes something motivational to all of us. Those heroes' journey of like Josh Allen turning this around and winning by 1 point, 41-40. That's inspiring to us all, right? It was inspiring to my husband. He was so excited and so happy. And he has been going through some health challenges lately that are becoming resolved. But I shared the story on Facebook and on LinkedIn in two very different ways. With my core group, I let them know a little bit more about his health issues. With LinkedIn, it was much more like motivational. I changed the story slightly based on the audience that I was communicating with, my people, my core people. These are people I'm going to tell a little bit more about what's going on, but the larger group, I'm going to talk much more about, what we get from the Bills game. So I changed my messaging based on the audience I was communicating to. The closer people, little more details. And the more professional network, I'm talking just more about football, which is ridiculous because I haven't followed football much since high school. Hey, I was a Bears fan. And so I haven't talked about football much at all. Anyway, that's how we change our messaging. Now, if I was writing about my husband's health issues as they were happening over the past few weeks, I couldn't do it. I was actually pretty silent on Facebook because I didn't really have much inspirational content to share because I was soaking in it. I was in the midst of the trauma. And when I'm in the midst of the trauma, a lot of the emotions that are coming up are a little more frustration, and I want to vent about the frustration. So I'd rather not say anything if I don't have a way to provide some inspiration. But the fact that I could write about his health issues and how I'm using NLP to kind of get him through it, how the NFL is kind of getting him through it, and then being able to play NLP NFL, it just kind of felt like a fun thing to write. So this is the kind of content that I share in my own personal practice. I don't share deep details about the trauma I'm going through when I'm going through the trauma, because that's not going to serve anyone. If I am just spewing out, venting the frustration that I'm having because my husband's going through pain and I can't solve the pain and he's vocalizing the pain and I need to wear noise canceling headphones, there's nothing helpful in that content. It's just me venting and other people supporting me. So I'd rather be silent when I'm soaking in it and just kind of let it go. I will say, however, that noise canceling headphones are amazing. So when you're thinking about sharing your personal story, when you are thinking about sharing something that will support your coaching business, and you hear all these people telling you to be vulnerable, yes, be vulnerable, but be vulnerable with 2020 hindsight. Be vulnerable in sharing what's really going on, but also share the solution. Share your resilience. Share how you're standing up and that how these hard things are not getting you down, haven't got you down. Because there is where people find connection. People can't turn away from your content when you are sharing a vulnerable story, but you want to make sure it is empowering. You don't want it to be the train wreck not being able to turn away. You want it to be the, oh my gosh, this person's really got it figured out. This person's got insights that can help me. I want to be able to be that resilient. I want to be able to go into a hard situation and have resilience and be able to have that kind of perspective because I know it's going to get me through the hard things. So I hope this discussion was helpful for you to understand how to share your story, to share your vulnerability. It is your greatest power, but you need to have that little tweak of not sharing the vulnerability when you're soaking in it. Share the vulnerability, share the emotion, but also you need to share that hindsight, that resilience, what got you through it. I hope this content was helpful. We'll see you next time on Coach Factory.